Max Verstappen has just been handed a piece of news that quietly reshapes Red Bull's entire approach to the 2026 season, and it explains far more than a simple staffing decision. At a moment when rumours about instability, exits and internal uncertainty have surrounded the team, Red Bull's confirmation that Gianpiero Lambiase will remain Verstappen's race engineer and head of racing is a powerful signal of intent. This is not just continuity for the sake of comfort. It is a strategic move that places stability around their most valuable asset at the most dangerous moment in Formula One's modern history. The timing of this revelation is what makes it so significant. The 2026 regulations represent the biggest reset the sport has seen in decades, and Red Bull are entering that era with more unknowns than ever before. They are losing Adrian Newey, building their own power unit for the first time, adapting to new tyres, new aerodynamics, and new energy deployment rules, all while trying to regain momentum after a difficult 2025. In that context, keeping Lambiase alongside Verstappen is not optional. It is essential. Lambiase is far more than the calm voice on Verstappen's radio. Over the years, his role has expanded into one of the most influential technical positions inside Red Bull. As head of racing, he sits at the intersection of strategy, race engineering, operations and driver feedback. That makes him the key translator between Verstappen's instincts and the team's technical execution. Losing him at the start of a regulation reset would have been catastrophic. Recent months made that risk feel very real. Lambiase's absence from several races, combined with visible emotion at the end of a frustrating season, sparked widespread speculation about his future. Offers from rival teams, including Aston Martin and Williams, only intensified those rumours. These were not speculative links. Lambiase is universally regarded as one of the sharpest minds on the pit wall, and teams rebuilding for 2026 were inevitably circling. That is what makes Red Bull's stance so striking. Despite the noise, despite the interest elsewhere, and despite internal change, they have locked down the one figure Verstappen trusts most on a race weekend. In a season where uncertainty could have driven Verstappen closer to the exit door, Red Bull have instead reinforced the core of his competitive environment. For Verstappen, this is arguably the best possible news he could receive. His success has never been built purely on car performance. It has been built on clarity, trust, and brutal honesty on the radio. Lambiase provides that without compromise. Their relationship is famously direct, occasionally tense, but always productive. In a sport where milliseconds matter, that level of communication cannot be replicated overnight. This becomes even more critical when considering the technical demands of 2026. The new cars will require drivers to actively manage energy deployment throughout the lap, not just on straights. That demands constant, precise communication between driver and engineer. Lambiase's ability to process information quickly, simplify complex instructions, and adapt strategy on the fly will be a major competitive advantage. Red Bull's internal logic becomes even clearer when this decision is viewed against the broader backdrop of structural change inside the team. Over the past 2 seasons, the organisation has been in constant motion, with senior engineers, strategists and operational figures either leaving or being reassigned. That level of turnover is normally a red flag ahead of a regulation reset. Yet within that shifting landscape, Red Bull have drawn a very deliberate red line around the driver-engineer axis. Everything else can evolve, but the Verstappen-Lambiase relationship is considered untouchable. That alone reveals where Red Bull believe true performance stability comes from. This distinction is important because Formula One teams often claim that performance is purely system-driven. In reality, Red Bull's actions suggest they see performance as emerging from a hybrid of structure and human chemistry. While processes, tools and simulations matter, they have concluded that Verstappen's ability to extract performance is inseparable from the individual who interprets his feedback, filters his emotion and converts instinct into actionable decisions. Lambiase is not just part of that system. He is the system's human interface. The contrast with recent high-profile departures makes this even more revealing. Figures like Will Courtney were initially contractually protected, only for Red Bull to eventually negotiate earlier exits when strategic realities shifted. That flexibility shows Red Bull are pragmatic when it comes to organizational reshaping. They are willing to compromise, renegotiate, and restructure elsewhere. Lambiase, there has been no such openness. Despite interest from multiple teams and clear opportunities for career progression, Red Bull have effectively closed the door. His contract running until the end of 2027 is not just a formality, it is a statement of priority. This also aligns directly with Red Bull's unusually aggressive technical philosophy heading into 2026. Becoming a power unit constructor for the first time introduces layers of risk that no simulation can fully eliminate. Software integration, energy recovery calibration, brake-by-wire behavior, and thermal management will all be in flux. Early mileage will not just be about lap time, but about identifying fundamental behaviors that could define the entire regulation cycle. In that environment, the quality of driver feedback becomes exponentially more valuable. Bringing a race-ready car to the first pre-season test in Barcelona is therefore not just a technical gamble, but an information strategy. Red Bull are betting that early exposure to real-world conditions will accelerate learning faster than cautious phased development. But that bet only works if the feedback loop is flawless. A driver who can articulate subtle behaviors and an engineer who can decode them instantly becomes a competitive weapon. Lambiase's presence maximizes the return on that risk. For Verstappen, this continuity is transformative. Pre-season testing under new regulations is rarely smooth. Correlation issues between simulator, wind tunnel, and track are almost guaranteed. Drivers often report strange balance shifts that engineers struggle to interpret without context. Having an engineer who already understands Verstappen's language, emotional triggers, and tolerance for instability shortens that learning curve dramatically. Instead of spending weeks aligning communication, they can focus immediately on optimization. There is also a crucial psychological dimension that cannot be separated from performance. Verstappen has navigated an unusually turbulent period at Red Bull, marked by leadership changes, internal and fluctuating competitiveness. For a driver operating at his level, instability off-track can become just as distracting as instability in the car. Retaining Lambiase provides a constant reference point. It reassures Verstappen that regardless of organizational change, the decision-making framework around him remains intact. This reassurance matters because Verstappen's future has been the subject of relentless speculation. Every internal shift, every rumor of unrest, every performance dip fuels narratives about a potential exit. By locking in Lambiase, Red Bull are not merely solving a sporting issue. They are managing an internal one. They are signaling to Verstappen and to the paddock that the team's long-term vision is still centered around him. The arrival of Isaac Hadjar further amplifies the importance of this decision. With a young, relatively inexperienced teammate entering the garage, Verstappen's influence over development direction will naturally increase. That can be both an opportunity and a risk. Without clear mediation, conflicting feedback can fragment development early in a regulation cycle. Lambiase's presence ensures that Verstappen's influence is channeled coherently, preventing the team from chasing multiple philosophies simultaneously. Red Red Bull's own history reinforces why this matters. Past regulation resets have shown how quickly performance can unravel when communication breaks down between driver and pit wall. Even with a fast car, hesitation, misinterpretation, or delayed decisions can turn race-winning potential into inconsistency. In 2026, when margins are expected to be tight and reliability uncertain, clarity of communication could be the difference between fighting for wins or playing catch-up. From a broader paddock perspective, Red Bull retaining Lambiase also underlines his growing status as one of the most complete engineers in Formula One. Teams were not interested in him simply because he works with Verstappen. They were interested because of his ability to operate across multiple layers of race engineering, strategy, and leadership. Red Bull keeping him is not just retention, it is a defensive move that denies rivals a critical asset. The understated nature of how this news emerged is also telling. There was no press conference, no celebratory announcement, no attempt to control the narrative. Instead, confirmation quietly filtered through trusted sources. That low-key approach suggests Red Bull view this as a necessity, not a marketing exercise. In Formula One, the most important decisions are often the least visible. For Verstappen, this is more than continuity. It is leverage. Entering 2026 with his most trusted technical ally by his side gives him confidence that his feedback will shape Red Bull's new era from the very first lap of testing. Influence cannot be replicated by any rival driver, regardless of talent. In a season defined by uncertainty, Red Bull have chosen one area where they refuse to gamble. They have protected the partnership that delivered 4 world titles, countless defining moments, and one of the most effective communication dynamics the sport has ever seen. Engines may change, regulations may reset, and rivals may rise, but Verstappen will not face that chaos alone. That is why this is genuinely huge news. Not because it guarantees success, but because it stabilizes the single relationship that underpins Red Bull's competitive identity at the exact moment everything else is about to change.